All right, access granted. What you're about to see is designated top secret. We are going deep inside one of the most significant containment protocols in history. This is Project Palace, declassified.
It all began with an anomaly. The source file reads, "At his birth, a system error in the status quo." Now, forget miracles or divine signs. From an Intel perspective, this was a security breach, a fundamental tear in the very fabric of our programmed reality.
Okay, we're accessing the primary intelligence file now, opening subject file 77A. The designation is simply the anomaly.
And there he is, the subject at the absolute center of the breach. Designation Siddhartha Gautama. But who was he, really, to the system administrators? His official status was high-value royal asset. See, he wasn't just a person, he was a strategic piece on the board, absolutely critical to the operational stability of the entire system. So what exactly was this system error? Our intel provides the technical definition: an unexpected deviation from the simulation's programmed reality. In plain English, a glitch. But a glitch with unpredictable and potentially catastrophic outcomes. A glitch like that, it sent the system's predictive models into total overdrive, and the output was a critical warning. This is what the files refer to as the binary prophecy, a literal fork in the source code itself. The system's calculation came back with only two potential futures. Path 1, code 01, the universal monarch. He'd become the system's champion, reinforcing the simulation through force and law.
Let's talk about a single moment. You know, that moment where the world you thought you knew just dissolves. And for the very first time, you see the raw, churning gears underneath it all.
And this right here, this one line, is the key to the whole story. It's about what happens when you strip away all the curated, comfortable stories we're told and just face what's actually there. It's a moment of pure, totally unfiltered perception.
Now, to really get that moment, we have to understand the world that was built to prevent it from ever happening. So imagine a life of engineered perfection, a simulation designed to get rid of all friction, all struggle, all pain. This was the palace, and it's where a young prince lived. He was only 7, just a kid, and for a single afternoon, he was allowed to step outside of this perfect bubble. And that one afternoon, well, it would change the course of his life, and honestly, in a lot of ways, the world. So you've got these two worlds about to just slam into each other. On one side, you have the illusion he was living in, this beautiful, peaceful, effortless garden. And on the other, the reality he was about to see for the first time, a high-friction system that's just powered by constant struggle. Our story happens right in the gap between those two.
Okay, so picture this. It's the annual plowing festival. It's supposed to be a big celebration. And the young Prince Siddhartha is just sitting there quietly watching it all from underneath a jambu tree. This is the spot, the vantage point from which his entire perfect world is about to crack wide open. The first thing he really sees isn't the festival, not the celebration. It's the effort, the raw physical struggle, the muscles of the oxen trembling, straining against this incredibly heavy yoke. He sees the immense friction it takes just to move forward.
Then his eyes follow the plow itself. And he doesn't see farming. He sees a kind of violence. The living earth being literally ripped apart by this cold, unfeeling blade of metal. It's like a wound being carved right into the land. And from that wound, life emerges, these tiny worms wriggling in the new light. But just as quickly, another form of life swoops in. Birds diving down, a flash of movement, and the worms are gone. Predator and prey, life and death, all happening in a single brutal instant.
And just like that, snap. This isn't a party anymore. He was seeing a system, a whole chain of interconnected violence he would later call mechanical conflict. And this system, he realized, it all runs on one fundamental, chilling rule.
He called it the tax of life. Think about it. For the farmer to get his crops, the earth has to be torn open. For the oxen to pull the plow, they have to strain and suffer. For the bird to eat and live, the worm has to die. Every single step forward is paid for by a sacrifice somewhere else in the system.
Now, what would you expect a 7-year-old to do seeing all this for the first time? You'd think he'd cry, right? Or get angry, maybe run away. But his reaction was something else entirely. It was quiet, profoundly quiet.
Faced with all this struggle, all this violence, he did nothing. He just sat there, perfectly still. He didn't try to fix it, he didn't judge it, he didn't look away, he just watched.
And in that stillness, he experienced something called a drop point. It was like he disconnected from that frantic loop of noise and effort all around him. He became a pure observer, totally detached from the movement. And in that moment of detachment, he found this strange, sudden clarity. This one moment of just sitting still and watching changed his perception of reality forever. He was no longer just in the world. For the first time, he was able to truly see it. And here's this beautiful, powerful metaphor. As the sun moved across the sky that day, the shadows of everything else moved with it. They danced and they shifted. But the story goes that the shadow of his jambu tree remained fixed, right over him. It was a symbol of his new state, a fixed point of clarity in a constantly churning, chaotic world.
And in that moment, the palace simulation, that whole carefully built reality of effortless perfection, it failed. The game was up. He had looked right past the painted scenery and finally saw the raw, churning gears of the machine that drives everything.
See, once you see the gears, you have a choice. You can try to pretend you didn't see them and just keep playing your part. Or you can do what he did. He made a conscious choice. He saw the system for exactly what it was, and he chose to step out of it entirely.
And that really brings the whole thing home to us. This story isn't just about some prince from a long, long time ago. It's a question for every single one of us. We all live inside systems, inside our own simulations. So the question it leaves you with is, once we see the gears turning, what machines in our own lives do we choose to step out of?
What exactly was Project Palace? At its core, yeah, it was King Suddhodana's plan for his son. But it wasn't just about giving him a life of comfort. Oh no, it was way more ambitious than that. It was about solving a problem. And here it is, the main objective. The king wasn't just some doting father trying to protect his son from the big bad world. He was acting like an engineer trying to patch what he saw as a critical, dangerous bug in the actual operating system of human consciousness.
Now, to really get what the king was trying to do, we have to understand the specific bug he was so desperate to fix. He had identified what he believed was a core vulnerability in our awareness, a concept known as Anichcha.
Okay, this is a really important technical definition, so let's lock in on this. Anichcha isn't just about things changing or being temporary. In this context, it's a very specific system failure. It's the mind's total inability to ever be permanently satisfied by anything. It's that little voice in the back of your head, the reason we always feel like something's missing, no matter how much we get. And this right here is the key distinction. We usually hear Anichcha translated as impermanence, which sounds kind of passive, right? Like you're just watching things fade away. But the technical meaning, the one the king was literally at war with, is an active failure, the failure of satisfaction. It means that things don't just fade out, they never really satisfy you in the first place. So this failure of satisfaction has a pretty major consequence. It basically turns the mind into this machine that is constantly, desperately demanding new fuel, new experiences, new sounds, new tastes, just to keep the illusion of contentment running. The king's plan was actually pretty simple. Just feed this machine so fast and so constantly that it would never even have a chance to realize it was still hungry. So how in the world do you solve a problem like an insatiable mind? Well, the king's answer was audacious, to say the least. It was all about environmental engineering. Instead of trying to change his son's mind, he decided he would just change reality itself by building the hardware to contain the problem. So you have these three palaces, Rama, Surama, and Subath. And you have to understand, these weren't just fancy houses for different seasons. No, they were meticulously designed pieces of experimental hardware. Their entire purpose was to function as saturation chambers, environments engineered from the ground up to completely overwhelm the senses with pleasure.
The actual strategy was a simple but really powerful three-step loop. Step 1, detect the very instant a desire starts to form in Siddhartha's mind. Step 2, provide immediate, overwhelming fulfillment for that desire. The idea was to shrink the gap between want and have down to zero. In step 3, by doing this over and over and over, you mask the underlying truth that the satisfaction is fake and the mind is, by its very nature, insatiable.
So, when you boil it all down, the strategy was basically a brute force attack. The king was trying to create a signal of pleasure so incredibly powerful and continuous that it would just completely drown out the background noise of the mind's built-in dissatisfaction.
But creating this perfect illusion, well, it required an incredible amount of hidden work.
What Siddhartha experienced as this effortless, perfect world was actually a massive 24/7 maintenance operation running constantly just behind the curtain.
Think about it from Siddhartha's perspective. His world was seamless. Every single view was beautiful, every sound was melodic, every single experience was pleasant. But this seamlessness was a complete illusion, and it was being maintained by a hidden army of people working frantically just out of his sight.
The directives for this site maintenance team were incredibly strict. I mean, they were absolute. If a flower showed even the slightest hint of wilting, it had to be replaced before the prince could ever see its failure to provide lasting beauty. If a piece of music was played long enough that it might become just a little bit repetitive, it had to be changed. Anything, and I mean anything, that even hinted at decay or boredom or dissatisfaction was systematically scrubbed from his reality.
And this wasn't a 9-to-5 job. This pleasure loop had to be maintained 24 hours a day. There could be absolutely no downtime. A single glitch, just one wilting flower, one moment of boredom could have shattered the entire illusion.
So, you've got all this effort, all this meticulous planning. Why did the project fail? The answer wasn't a problem with the execution. It was a fundamental, fatal flaw in the design itself.
And here it is. This is the fatal design flaw. The king correctly identified a software problem, the mind's insatiable operating code. But he tried to fix it with a hardware solution, bigger, better palaces. He was basically throwing an infinite amount of sensory data at an internal processing problem.
You know, the project was really doomed from the very start. Because you cannot fix an internal mechanism with an external supply. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket by just pouring more and more water into it. The flaw is in the bucket itself. Project Palace proved, maybe better than anything else in history, that even an infinite supply of pleasure can't patch the mind's built-in failure to be satisfied.
And this leaves us with the exact same question that Siddhartha himself would go on to explore for the rest of his life. It's the question the Project Palace, in its spectacular failure, really poses for all of us. If an infinite external supply can never ever bring lasting satisfaction, then what's the alternative?
You know, we all think we know the story of the prince, but I was there, and what I saw wasn't just some guy enjoying a life of luxury. No, for 13 years, I watched him run this secret, high-stakes audit of reality itself.
I was in the palace, a guest, a courtier. The details are a little hazy now, but I'll never forget the feeling. It was a world engineered for pure, unadulterated bliss. The very air was thick with perfume and music. But my eyes, they always went back to him, the prince. And amidst all that perfection, he was the one flaw. The man it was all for, and he wasn't happy. And that was the most fascinating and frankly terrifying thing I had ever seen.
To really get what was going on in his head, you have to understand the sheer scale of the world built around him. This wasn't just a rich kid's palace, you know? It was a sensory overload machine. It was this beautiful golden cage designed to keep out one thing: reality.
Let's just start with a number, okay? 40,000. That's how many dancing girls were apparently in his service. Think about that for a second. This wasn't just about pleasure. This was about data, an overwhelming, constant stream of sensory input, designed to leave absolutely no room for any other thought. And it didn't stop there, not by a long shot. I remember the finest musicians playing day and night, these unending feasts, gardens that were somehow in perpetual bloom. Every sight, every sound, every smell was perfectly curated. We all knew what the king was up to. He wanted to shield his son from any hint of suffering. No old age, no sickness, no death. So you'd think, in this perfectly constructed world of joy, the prince would be the most joyful person of all, right? But from my vantage point, watching from across the Great Hall, that's not what I saw. I saw something else entirely, an anomaly. While the rest of us were lost in the music, the wine, the moment, he just wasn't. He was there for sure, but he wasn't really participating. His eyes weren't glazed over with pleasure, they were sharp, focused. He'd be watching the dancers, but it looked like he was analyzing their movements. He'd listen to the music, but it was like he was deconstructing the melody. He was an observer, inside his own life.
And that's when it clicked for me. He wasn't just being moody or distant. I mean, today we'd have a word for it, right? We'd call it auditing. He was running a systematic examination of the system he was in. The planned arrangement was happiness, but the result? That was something else entirely. He was testing the whole system's integrity.
And none of this was an accident. The whole thing,
The cage, the pleasure, the isolation, it was all the master plan of the system's architect, his own father, the king. This was a grand experiment in human consciousness.
So let's look at the timeline of this whole experiment. It kicks off when he's 16, with his marriage to Princess Yashodhara. That's the first step, engineer stability. Then, from 16 all the way to 29, the pleasure experiment is in full swing. That's 13 years of non-stop, peak-level sensory delight. But by 29, I think the prince had collected enough data. He became an observer, and the audit phase began. He started looking for the cracks in the system.
The king's plan was incredibly methodical when you think about it. Step 1, stability. Lock down the future with a strategic marriage. Step 2, pleasure. Just saturate his world with a constant sensory overload. And the end goal of all this? To engineer a permanent, unshakable happiness so his son would never, ever want anything else.
But like any perfectly designed system, it had one fatal flaw. A bug in the code that the architect, the king, either didn't see or just chose to ignore. And the auditor, the prince, he found it. Okay, so the king's entire premise was basically this. You can pour enough external pleasure into a person to create permanent internal peace. But the reality of consciousness is that it's an insatiable system. It's a bottomless cup. You can't fill it permanently from the outside. The more you give it, the more it just learns to want.
And this, right here, is the fundamental law that the entire experiment broke. You just cannot engineer a permanent solution for an insatiable system. It's like trying to build a dam to hold back the entire ocean. Eventually, the nature of the thing itself is going to win out. And seeing him there with that quiet intensity, I finally understood. He wasn't sad, he wasn't bored, he was waiting. He was like an auditor who'd found a critical error in the code, and he was just waiting for the whole simulation to crash.
So this brings us to the most important part of this whole story. Because the story of the Golden Cage, it isn't just about some prince from a long time ago. It's really about the cages that we build for ourselves.
He took a step back, and he started to observe the mechanics of his reality. The inputs, the outputs, the intended results versus what was actually happening. So the question for us is, are we doing the same thing? Are we ever stepping back to really audit the systems that are running our own lives? And the simulation did crash, of course, spectacularly. In our next explainer, we're going to look at the breakout, the famous foresights that finally shattered the system and exposed the kingdom's greatest lie. But that's a story for another time. Until then, I'll leave you with this thought. The prince's cage was made of gold and pleasure, sure, but it was still just a mental fabrication, an idea about what happiness should be. So the final question is, are you living in a cage of your own mental fabrications? And if you are, isn't it time to start your own audit?
You know, as a leader, you're all about tracking KPIs, monitoring system performance, optimizing for efficiency, right? But what if the single most critical system you have, your own mind, is running on some seriously buggy code? Today, we're going to treat mental clarity not as some fuzzy, abstract goal, but as a hard and fast key performance indicator. So let me ask you this. You've probably analyzed all the workflows, you've upgraded the software, you've even optimized team structures. But what if there's this persistent, invisible drag on performance that's actually way closer to home? Yeah, you heard that right. The biggest bottleneck holding everything back might not be in your operations at all, but in your own personal operating system. It's this subtle but absolutely constant drain on your most valuable resource, your focused attention. The source material has a great name for this: mental static. Now, think of it like a background process that's always running on your computer, just eating up all your mental RAM. It's the noise your mind makes when it gets stuck trying to defend a story that just isn't true, a fabrication. And the static, it doesn't just distract you, it can actually corrupt your decision-making.
But here's the good news. You can totally debug this system. In this explainer, we're going to walk through a really technical 7-day diagnostic pulled from the source material. It's designed specifically to help you pinpoint the source of the static and, well, reboot your ability to lead with clarity and decisiveness.
So, let's treat this exactly like any other professional systems analysis. We're going to run a full diagnostic on the mind's internal architecture. And just to be clear, this isn't about journaling your feelings. It's a fast-track process to identify and resolve real performance issues.
Okay, so this whole 7-day audit, it can really be broken down into 4 key phases. First, we're going to isolate the initial error. Then, we map out how it spreads through the system. After that, we deconstruct the faulty logic behind it. And finally, we run a diagnostic to confirm the failure. The first 4 days are all about data collection. That's it. We are not trying to fix a single thing yet. The goal here is just to be an observer, to map the behavior of this mental static and gather totally objective data on how this bug operates inside your system. So here's the day-by-day breakdown of our data collection. Day 1, we find the source. Day 2, we track how it spreads. Day 3, we figure out its motivation. And on day 4, we actually measure its impact. All right, day 1 is all about isolating the trigger. The moment you notice that static, that restlessness, you just ask yourself one simple question. What launched this simulation? Was it an external fact, like an email you just read or something someone just said to you? Or was it an internal memory, a thought about a past meeting or even a worry about the future? Now, on day 2, you track the contamination. It turns out there are 3 main types of these fabrications that create this cloudiness in your mental space. They're rooted in greed or wanting something, in anger or pushing something away, and in delusion or just plain confusion. Your only job is to notice which one is showing up. Day 3 is all about figuring out the direction of movement. You see, every fabrication has a motivation, an engine. Is your mind getting pulled forward, chasing some kind of lure because you want a certain outcome? Or is it being pushed away, fleeing a shadow out of fear or aversion? Understanding this vector is absolutely key. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, because we're about to quantify a feeling. Day 4 is about rating the friction. How much performance drag is the static actually creating? You just rate the intensity of the contamination, that mental noise, as low, medium, or high. Bam, you've just turned a subjective feeling into a measurable data point. Okay, let's move into phase 2, the analysis. Now that we have 4 solid days of data, we can start to analyze the fault in the code. This is where we shift gears from just observing to actually deconstructing. Day 5 is all about deconstructing the narrative. See, this mental static, it always comes with a story. It has a justification for why all this tension is necessary, or why it's real. Your job is simply to identify that story. What's the narrative your mind is spinning to make this whole fabrication seem legitimate? And that brings us to day 6, which introduces what might be the most powerful tool in this entire framework. Once you've identified that narrative, you run it through a really simple but incredibly powerful diagnostic checklist. So this is the crucial point, this 3-question diagnostic. You ask yourself about the thought or the story you're analyzing. Is it stable or does it keep shifting and changing? Is it genuinely satisfying or does it just lead to more tension? And is it reliable or is it a totally unpredictable source of stress? Look, if the answer to these is no, then that mental architecture has officially failed the audit. So once the audit reveals the fault in the system, we get to the final phase, the system reset. This is where all that insight gets converted directly into action. And that brings us to day 7, the culmination of the entire audit. You've collected the data, you've analyzed the fault, you've confirmed the bug. Now it's time to execute the command. And this illustrates the final instruction just brilliantly. The reset isn't about fighting the static or trying to suppress the thought. No, it's a strategic withdrawal of your resources. You simply stop maintaining the architecture that supports the fabrication. You recognize it failed the audit and you let it go. So you now have the complete framework for a full system audit of your most valuable asset. The only question left, really, is this. Are you ready to run the diagnostic and reclaim your focus? To get you started, you can download the 7-day Mental Static Reset Bundle. It comes with a 9-page technical workbook and 14 minimalist wallpapers. Just click the link below. Go ahead, start the audit, reset your focus, and just see what you can achieve with true mental clarity.